I brought home a service dog without asking. My parents kept a notebook to prove I'd fail. I was 14 and begging my parents for a service dog. My anxiety was so bad I couldn't get out of the car at school. My therapist said a trained dog could help me calm down. My parents kept saying no. Dad said dogs were too much work and too expensive. Mom said I was exaggerating to skip class. At dinner, Dad joked, "If you're too anxious for school, how will you walk a dog every day?" A week later, my cousin Jake called. His friend had to give up a lab mix named Scout. I met Jake at the park, clipped on the leash, and walked home with the dog. I opened the door and my parents froze. Mom asked where the dog came from. Dad asked why there was a dog in his kitchen. Their voices rose. Mom talked about vet bills and messes. Dad said I couldn't just bring home an animal. I said I'd handle it. Dad said, "Prove it." He gave me 1 week and pulled out a small blue notebook to keep score. If I slipped, Scout went back. Day 1, he wrote that I forgot to refill the water bowl before school. I filled it, taped a note by the sink, and set an alarm. That evening, I taught Scout to wait on the mat while I wiped his paws. Day 2, he wrote, "Mud on carpet," circled twice. I scrubbed the stain, set a towel by the door, and added "wipe paws" to my checklist. That first night, something shifted. Most nights, I woke around 3 with a tight chest. When my breath shortened, Scout hopped on the bed, lowered his head on my chest, and stayed. His weight was steady. My breathing slowed. I slept until my alarm. At breakfast, Mom asked why I looked rested. I told her what Scout did. She said it was just excitement. Day 3 was math tutoring with Mr. Peterson, the session that usually ended with me crying in the hallway. I brought Scout and asked if he could lie by my chair. Mr. Peterson sighed, then nodded. I started a problem. My leg bounced. Scout touched my wrist with his paw. I exhaled and kept writing. When my breath sped up, his nose nudged my elbow. I solved one problem, then another, then a third. No tears. Mr. Peterson said, "You were focused today," and he emailed my parents. Day 4 was a meeting with the counselor, Mrs. Collins, because I had missed too many classes. My stomach turned all morning. I brought Scout, sat, and wrapped the leash around my hand. Mrs. Collins asked about attendance. The panic rose fast. Scout put his paw on my knee and met my eyes until my hands stopped shaking. Mrs. Collins watched. When I fidgeted, he nudged. When my voice thinned, he leaned. After 20 minutes, she said she wanted to speak with my parents. That evening, she called them. She said, "Your daughter is a different person with this dog. This isn't a phase or an excuse. This is a tool that helps her function." When they hung up, nobody spoke. Day 5, the notebook entries got small. Hair on couch, leash on table. I vacuumed and hung the leash on a hook. I added chores without being asked. Food at 7, walk at 7:30, water after school, short fetch, brushing before bed. I wrote the list above the bowls and checked each box. Scout learned the pattern. Shoes on, he sat by the door. Timer chimed, he came to the kitchen. After homework, I practiced breathing with him, counting in and out with my hand on his fur. On the way to school, I reached the front steps before my throat tightened. It didn't win. Dad still kept the notebook. He didn't make jokes anymore. He just watched. Then came day 6. The house was quiet at 2 in the morning. I woke to a thin sound from my parents' room, air catching and rushing. Scout heard it too. He slid off the bed and trotted down the hall. I followed and stopped at the doorway. Dad sat up with his hands on his chest, eyes wide, breath too fast. Before I could speak, Scout climbed onto the bed and lowered his head onto Dad's chest, the same way he did with me. Dad didn't push him off. He put a hand on Scout's neck. His breath slowed in small steps. The room settled. I stood there a minute, then went back to my room and listened to the quiet. In the morning, nobody mentioned the night, but things had moved. Scout's bowls were no longer by the trash can. They were stacked in the lower cabinet by the sink. His toys sat in a small basket by Dad's chair. The blue notebook lay closed on the counter. I touched the cover and waited. Dad came in from the yard. He looked at Scout, then at me, like he was weighing something and had reached the same answer twice. He lifted one shoulder and said, "I guess he's staying." Now my parents are saying I forced them by bringing Scout home. Was I wrong?